Good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us for another edition of our weekly real estate backstory. This is where we kind of go over the comings, the goings, things happening in the real estate market here in the Atlanta area. My name is Alan Richardson. I'm the managing broker at Maximum One Realty Partners.
My name is Ming Richardson, a compliance broker for Maximum One Realty and Realtor Partners.
And we want to kind of jump right in and start talking about leads. And so there was a new survey talking about what percentage of agents are getting their business from online leads and overall, like from the brokerage and that kind of stuff. And really, it ends up being about less than 10% come from online leads. And so we don't have a problem with online leads at all. It really isn't an issue. The thing that we see standing out so much is there's so many people, especially agents, who say, I need more leads, I need more internet leads, I need more internet leads, and they only make up 10%. They're it's kind of like sometimes we miss the forest for the trees, and so like it really does come down to having relationships, building relationships. And so we are going to encourage you to please join us on Mondays. We're doing our top 50 program where we go through and work on building relationships with clients. And there's nothing wrong. We also talk about lead generation during those same accountability sessions. It's every Monday morning, starts at 9, watching this, and then 9:30 is when the accountability starts. So please, we encourage you to join us for that. Overall, when you just look at the internet lead generation kind of thing, even then, the largest piece comes from social media, not from Zillow, Facebook, that kind of stuff. So,
And I do want to caution you on internet leads. Sometimes you can get, on the average, 100 leads. Out of that 100, you may successfully close 2 or 3. So what I'm saying is that there's a lot of time spent on those cold leads and foster that relationship. The thing is that Alan and I are trying to teach everybody to be brilliant at the basic, meaning develop your sphere and nurture these folks. Because I can tell you at the end of the day, it's better to do it that way than just rely on internet leads.
That's where a sustainable business comes from. Now, speaking of like working with listings, and this one sounds weird, but like I want my clients to know how that they can donate anything. And so what we created for you is a list of companies that will either pick up or you can drop off just about anything. And this is an important step for our sellers. When our sellers start decluttering, when they start emptying out the basements and getting rid of their bunt pans and their fondue pots, that's when they've decided to move. And so when it comes to clothes, of course, you got Goodwill, Salvation Army, Vietnam Veterans of America will pick up
Dress for Success.
Clothes, Dress for Success. Those are dresses and business attire for women under.
And also Save a Suit. I know that I have some that I used to wear a lot of suit in my younger days, and now I don't really wear them at all.
Yep.
So if you're looking at giving those away, please donate to a good cause. Not only that, you can write off the taxes.
Yeah. Shoes go to Souls for Souls. Becca's Closet, if you have old prom dresses and things like that, it goes for underprivileged girls that would like to have those. Furniture and Household, of course, we still have Goodwill in there. Habitat for Humanity Restore will take just about anything. And then the Furniture Bank Network is also, there's 3 furniture banks in Atlanta where you can donate those as well. Electronics, Secure the Call, that's for domestic abuse survivors, and that's phone calls, as well as cell phones for soldiers, and they'll take your old cell phones in there. Miscellaneous, when it comes to that category out there, we've got stuffed animals for emergencies, and that's where hospitals and police departments, just for those kids to be able to have something to hug on to. Second Chance Toys is another one, and then Bikes for the World. So please, share these with your clients. It's a good topic to be able to talk about as far as helping your clients to declutter. It really is a really strong
that is going for a good cause.
Yeah. So, as of February 2024, all top 50 markets in the United States, it was cheaper to be a renter than it is to purchase. And we have to understand, and we need to be the advocates for homeownership. I'm not saying that it's cheaper to buy right now. I really can't say that at the moment. However, if you rent, you're going to keep renting, and it may be cheaper on the initial, but in the long term, wealth in the United States is tied up in home ownership. We have to understand what's really going on right this minute. There's been a massive overbuilding in the rent, and especially in the apartment industry, and I'll show you a slide on that in a minute. And then, with our interest rates are still elevated. We're still seeing property values increase. So we know and we understand that for our renters, it's a tough place to be. However, if you want to change people's lives, go from being a renter to a homeowner.
Well, this is also a time for you to encourage your renters to save all the money they can for the buy.
Yeah.
So, even though rental is cheaper right now than mortgage, understand that when they are buying, then they will have some money maybe saved to buy.
But wealth again. Wealth is in home ownership, and if you rent today, the average net worth for a renter is around $10,000. The average net worth for a homeowner is over $300,000. Which group do you want to be part of? No one retires as a renter and be like, look at all I have. This is important to be. We need to be the advocates for home ownership.
Absolutely.
So right now, our average buyer in the United States needs $76,000 to afford the typical U.S. starter home. That for you is just a benchmark number. If your clients together don't make about $75,000-$80,000, they probably can't afford the average starter home. Like that's kind of the benchmark of where they're going to need to be on average.
Even with down payment assistance, they only go so far. At the end of the day, can you find a cheaper home? Absolutely. But are you going to have the champagne taste? You can't, because there's none available.
Yeah. So mortgage rates didn't really move much this week. They went up, they went down, they kind of bounced around. So we didn't see very much movement in the mortgage arena. Inflation is still in the threes, and so the Fed just doesn't want to do much as far as lowering the federal funds rate until they see inflation coming back down closer to 2. And so even though it's not where the sevens and the eights where it was, it's still not where they're wanting it to be. And so we're still seeing where inflation is sticky at the moment. Now, the good news right now is that FHA loans are more popular now than they've been in a long time. And so FHA and VA are both starting to trend up a little bit right now. For FHA, the benefit here is that we're seeing where our FHA mortgages are running almost a quarter to a half lower than conventional at the moment.
And that's because the mortgage insurance premium.
Yeah.
So I know it sounds weird, but it's almost like you're being penalized having good credit with conventional and qualify for conventional, because your payment is much higher on the mortgage insurance premium if you don't have that 20% down.
Well, but we also want you to understand that the FHA it's not bad.
FHA is designed for the first-time home buyer to help them
right
into getting affordable housing.
Right, but don't think that my client has to go into conventional in order for me to get these offers in.
No,
we're seeing FHAs are strong. So don't think an FHA borrower is not. I mean, we have folks who are choosing FHA over conventional
because of PMI. And honestly, if an FHA buyer has 20% put down, even better.
Yeah. So home buyer down payments went up 24% in February. We're seeing where down payments are ramping up. Now, why is this? Well, in part, it's because of interest rates. When interest rates go up, who becomes a very prominent buyer for us? The boomers are. The boomers are coming in with large amounts of equity, which they're putting down on their homes, and so that's changing some numbers around a little bit there. But that doesn't mean that right now the average down payment for the average first-time buyer is around 6%. So it's not. That doesn't mean that that's across the board. Now we are seeing where basically a third of home purchases are made with cash right now, and again, that's a metric driven by our boomers, because our baby boomers
they have all the equity in the house, so therefore they can downsize and buy another property with cash.
But again, this shows the power of home ownership, right?
Correct.
Just like we were talking about before. So new listings right now, our new listings are for the month. We're seeing new listings trending up more than we have last year, and we're not where we want to be, right? I mean, you can see us versus this year versus the past several years. yes, it is great to see us up over last year. But when you look at us compared to the last 6, 7 years before that, we haven't reached the inventory levels where we need to be. But there is definitely a shift in the right direction. We're seeing it move. We're also seeing where total inventory is now. So new inventories are trending up, and therefore total inventories are trending up. And they're trending up over the last 3 years where
which
we
is
are.
a great thing.
Look, total inventory is finally, now we're not where we were pre-COVID, but we are moving that way right now. And we're seeing a shift right now
Mhm.
in the market where we're going to start seeing a lot more inventory, and that's really coming on. Now, because of that rising inventory, what's happening to days on market?
It's gone up. And while partial days on market's gone up is because also interest rate, because it costs more monthly payment to buy the same sale price.
Well, but I mean, residential real estate is based on supply versus demand, right? So we have increasing supply, and then we have interest rates limiting demand. Therefore,
Correct.
we're seeing days on market tweak up. At the same time, we're seeing the percentage of properties sold above list price tweaking down. All this is, again, it's market driven about what's going on. Now, does this mean we're going into a crash? No, this doesn't. But it does mean that we are seeing some changes happening in the market right now.
Correct.
The number of offers received per sale also down right now. Now we know that if interest rates come back down another point, that changes the whole game all over again. Overall total volume is still doing really, really well. However, our pending sales are still down about 3%. We were looking at pending sales starting to move up over last year, but the interest rates have been holding us back on that side of things. Now, we still have good activity.
So if you
we're
price
not,
a
we're not,
property
yeah,
right,
yeah, we're not trying to paint this picture that you need to be worried about the market. That's not what we mean. But for our sellers, there is good activity going on out there. But that activity is going for good condition properties in good locations with proper pricing.
correct.
That's really where it's coming down to. So the days of our sellers saying, "I'm not going to make repairs.
I'm not doing a whole lot of anything or even
Yeah,
offer any concessions.
I'm not going to offer any concessions. I'm not going to offer a buyer's co-op. I'm not, these kind of things. Like this is going to hurt the sellers. We need to be able to communicate that right now we have increasing inventory, and we have that purchases are being held down right now because of interest rates. So like we're moving into a market where we're going to start seeing more flattening of prices. Now that hasn't been exactly what we've been seeing so far. Matter of fact, we can see that in February we saw increasing sales up over last year, total volume in sales. That's good to see, but and for the past month, nationwide 7% in 1 month property value increase. They're looking at a 3% increase total for the year, 3% property value increase. I think that we're looking, somewhere in that 3 to flat% at this point because we have inventory increasing, and unless we get help with interest rates, we're going to start seeing where the volume of sales holds off.
Correct.
Last year, we finished just under 7% property value appreciation here in Georgia, and that's a great place for us to be. But we need to be able to start communicating to our sellers what's really happening out there. Excuse me. In the days of being able to throw out a ridiculously high price and not offer any kind of concessions or closing costs, and trying to be, thinking that we're moving into a balanced market, and we need to be the ones that are communicating that we're moving into this balanced market, and that like in a balanced market, there's push and pull on both sides of that.
Absolutely. And it depends on the motivation of the clients, either buyer or seller, is what is our job to negotiate those deals out.
There was a new study by baby boomers I wanted to share with you, and on one hand you look at it and it says 70% of baby boomers are planning on staying put, right, and planning on aging in place, and I'm not disputing that. However, 30% of baby boomers are planning on moving, right? And so and this is not anything that different from any other previous generation. Nobody wants to leave their home. No one's planning on. Who's like, oh, let's move into a whatever. a lot of people, like, for generations, you wanted to stay with family, or you wanted to be with family, or you wanted to be in your home. And so there's nothing wrong with that. But understand that there's still a great opportunity out there. Boomers right now make up a pretty significant piece of our market. I'm going to show you that. Like, if you look at right now, so this is from the National Association of Realtors, and this is our share of buyers and sellers by generation. And there's some interesting things to point out here that, right now, our millennials, when you add up our younger and older millennials, they make up 38% of our buyers, which is no big surprise. However, they also make up 25% of our sellers. I mean, almost a quarter of our sellers are millennials. So please don't think that if you're trying to work with millennials and working with buyers that you're going to miss out on sellers. That's not the case at all. Now, our boomers, because our boomers have so much equity, again, great point for home buying, right? But, our younger boomers and our older boomers make up, what's that, 45% of sellers out there. So remember that like that's a really strong market. Almost 30% of our buyers are boomers.
Yep.
So like again, we try and point this information out so that you can kind of see what the shift happening in the marketplace is, because that's the only constant that we really have here in real estate, is that there's always change. And if you can't handle change, then this shouldn't be the industry for you, honestly. So now here in the Atlanta market, new construction for apartments has ground to a halt. Matter of fact, it's got negative growth going on. And part of that is just a pullback because there was so much growth going on in apartments, which is why we're seeing apartment values and rental rates down right now.
There's more competition for apartment rent. So, and therefore, while we still have a lot of folks moving down Atlanta, but the movement is not for apartment living. It's more for single family to a certain extent.
Yeah, it's supply versus demand. There's a lot more supply than there is demand for it. So not only are we seeing where construction is tapering off, we're seeing where rents have been declining. And so that's good for our renters, but the positive here for our renters is what?
You can save some money.
Exactly. All right. So what about foreclosures? We get this information all the time, like hey, what's what's going on? When are foreclosures coming back? They're not. Like what you can see is the area in the bright green. These are 30-day delinquencies, and at zero. And so basically, Georgia and most of the U.S. I mean, there's only, there aren't very many places where.
Well, the thing is that once again, unless it's and we seeing a lot of investor activity targeting toward absentee owners or probates or divorce. Basically, folks are distressed that do not know their market value, and therefore that's where they hit for a discounted price. Those are harder inventory to find, and also you have to hit it at the right time and right moment.
Well, right now, overall delinquencies are actually flat with last year. 30 to 60 days is under last year. 60 to 90 days is under last year.
And what we're saying is that everybody has equity. So people are getting creative on getting other source of income just to satisfy whatever it is that they're delinquent in.
Yeah. We want to kind of change gears and talk a little bit about operating in the post-NAR settlement world. And the first thing we want to kind of ask you is, how good is your buyer's presentation? Like, one of the big changes that we see moving forward is that we are going to be treating our buyers exactly the same way as we've treated our sellers for years. And we don't see this as a bad thing. But I think that agents, realtors need to understand that there's this shift going on. And so we have to have a really solid buyer's presentation.
No longer a day like I go show you houses and you sign all these without me explaining to you what are you selling, what are you signing.
Yeah.
Because a lot of time we get in a hurry and we don't take the time to inform our clients on what their rights and so they can make a informed decision.
Well, and never you would never go on a listing appointment and be like, hey, I just sent you, I just authenticized you some papers, sign those, and I'll list your home. And then just be
No,
no.
there's a
But
consultation.
that's how it's been for buyers for years. So we have to train ourselves and our buyers. Like if I'm going to go on a listing appointment, I'm going to prepare. I'm going to do a CMA in advance. I'm going to have all my documents ready. I'm going to go and I'm going to meet the homeowner. We're going to tour the house. We're going to build some rapport with them, and then we're going to go through. These are the list of services that we provide. And then these are the fees that I charge, and then we're going to go through the listing agreement together. We're going to get that all signed up and set up before we move forward. It's going to be the same thing for buyers moving forward. We have to be ready to have a really solid buyer's presentation. You have to come with your value proposition about what it is that I bring to the table. That these are the services I provide. These are the fees I charge. And then you have to get that buyer brokerage agreement signed before you open a door. So we need to start getting our heads around that. We need to
Well,
start training our
you can
clients.
definitely practice your business however you deem fit. But if you get bit because a buyer refuses to sign the buyer brokerage agreement right before you propose the purchase and sale, then you got to be creative and getting, well, first off, you can't ask for commission because you don't have any agreement with the buyer.
Well, the other side of this is what happens when you get a client who says no? Then go find another client. Now that sounds really harsh, but like here's the reality of it. We have folks right now, the last 20 years we've been in the business that said no. They're going to say no in the future. And you know what? That's okay. I don't need your business. And I don't mean that to sound arrogant or
We
conceited.
don't need your business, but
But
we're not the agent for you because I don't work for free. Just like
yep.
I don't expect you to work at your job for free.
Yeah, and so it's not about being greedy or callous, but like Ming said, we
This is a
don't work for
transaction
free.
professional
And
services.
so, one benefit you do have now is that you also have somebody else to be the bad guy. I know that sounds kind of like a cop out, but like my broker requires it, the law requires it, the NAR suit requires it, the evil greedy lawyers required it. Blame everybody as far as I'm concerned. But the
If
whole
you want to
point
point that
here,
finger,
like this is the bottom line. This is the reality that we're moving into. And the sooner that we in the real estate community get our head around that, the better off we're going to be. We're going to have our buyer brokerage agreement signed in advance to showing properties. I don't want you to wait until mid-July or whenever this whole thing kind of actually comes down and then have to
start
ship.
practicing it now.
Bingo. Yeah, she is so spot on with that. So part of the reason why we've had this challenge in the courts is because in our opinion, agent representation and disclosure has not been clearly defined. And a matter of fact, as part of the National Association of Realtors survey of buyers and sellers, they asked just all the folks who bought a home in the last year, and so they polled them and said, hey, was your disclosure statement signed? Was it clearly identified who you represented? Who did this agent represent? Who did this agent represent? And so overall, 25% of our clients said yes, that was done at the first meeting. Another 22% said it was done when the contract was written. So about half the time. The other half didn't know, basically. 20% said, almost a quarter said, no, we weren't done it. 20% had no idea. Only 12% said, I think so at some other point, but like, this is on us, my friends. We need to take ownership of this and understand that everybody involved in the transaction, we need to have transparency about who represents who. This is vitally important for us to get fixed here.
And if you're uncomfortable with that, I know a lot of us allow that uncomfortable or what we call fear or pain point stop us from being that good what we do. Because if you look at it from a perspective of helping people versus this is something I got to do, then that's a different perception. And you will never succeed if you feel like this is something you have to do versus this is me informing my clients of their rights so they can make an informed decision with me. Because without that, I can't really give them a clear direction how to go navigate through this path.
Now, the other thing that the NAR asked was, like, did you have a buyer's brokerage agreement, BBA. And in here, we failed again horribly. 40% of the time, our buyers said, yes, I had a buyer's representation arrangement with an agent. 17% said they had an oral one. And look, if it's not written, it's not real. That doesn't count. A quarter, 26% said no. Another 16% said they don't know. Again, this is on us. And so the whole idea of meeting with your client ahead of time and signing that arrangement in order to show property, that's going to be it. And then the other thing that they asked asked buyers and sellers was, how was your real estate agent compensated? And so half of them said it was paid by the seller, 12% said it was by the buyer and seller, 25% said it was by the buyer only, and 19% did no. Like again, who do you represent? Who gets paid? What's going on? Transparency is what's really needed here, and we have to be the ones driving this bus. Like it's vital that we do that. So some of these changes coming about, we're not upset about them at all. This is one that's going to help good agents to get more business on us.
Correct.
Now, the other thing that we need to be able to talk about is there is this shift of like, well, as a listing agent, if my seller doesn't want to offer a buyer co-op, well, then we're just going to go about it. Well, do you have you looked at the things that buyers agents do? And so if you'd like this list, I'm going to send this over to our branch managers. Our branch managers will be able to share this with you, that kind of thing. But like, we wanted to share with you like 100 things that buyers agents do for their clients, right? And so before the search, during the search, making an offer, under contract, before closing, after closing, and then all the additional services that we do with our clients. And listing agents, we have to be ready to have that conversation with our sellers to say, I represent you in this transaction, but if a buyer comes and they're unrepresented, I don't work for free on that. That's not a free service. I mean, I don't. It's not going to be to me. I'm not going to represent a buyer as you can represent, as long as your broker allows it, you can represent your seller as a client. You could represent the buyer as a customer, but are you prepared to do that for free?
So basically what Alan's saying is that whether or not if you're co-oping on one deal, are you going to give up your rights, earning that commission for that buyer for nothing at all? So, while we do discount, some of us do, if we get buy and list side, okay, that's fine. Have that conversation up front so you're not caught at the back end.
Yeah. The other thing that we want to point out to our sellers right now, not only now, but moving forward, in Georgia, our sellers have never had to offer a buyer's co-op. But I want to share some numbers with you about why they're shooting themselves in their foot if they don't do that.
Look at the age group that's buying.
Well, right now, first-time buyers make up 32% of all buyers in a market. And first-time buyers, guess what they need? They need as much help as they can get, right? They're having to come up with all the other costs associated with buying a home, their down payment, their closing costs, all that kind of stuff. And so, yeah, we're seeing where they ask for those things. But they also need help with the agent, with being able to compensate their agent. This is a group that needs representation. They don't know what they don't know. And so if there's ever a group, our first-time buyers are a group that needs representation. And it's not that we're going to steer our first-time buyers away from a seller that's not offering a co-op. It's that my buyers can't afford it.
Right.
It changes it to an affordability issue, right? They have this much money that they're prepared to buy, that they have in order to buy a home. And if that seller makes it so that that buyer can't afford that home, then they're not going to buy it. We're not going to steer them away from it, but they're not just going to say, oh, well, I don't need representation. I'm just going to wing this on my most expensive asset I've ever bought. First time buying a home, I'm going to go it alone because the seller won't offer. That's not going to happen. They're not going to buy the home. The other thing that we want to point out is that right now, 18% of all of our buyers are veterans,
yep.
are VA. So when you put in 32% first-time buyers, 18% veterans can't pay the VA through a VA. the veteran is not allowed to pay an agent commission. And so for your sellers, if they say, I am not going to offer any kind of commission,
For veteran or first-time home buyers,
well, you just eliminated half of the buyers in the market. And so,
good qualifying buyers.
well, and like right now, half of your buyer pool is just gone. And so, what do you do if you're a seller and half of the buyers who would be considering your home are not in play now? Well, now you need to reduce your price, right? Because how else am I going to make this property appealing? We already see inventory is increasing, prices are holding steady. I mean, they're not going down, but prices are holding steady. But overall volume is not increasing because we're being held back by mortgage rates. And sellers are interested in eliminating half the buyers who are looking at a property. I don't want this to sound manipulative, but if you really care about your sellers, you have to be honest about this is what's happening in our market. And do you want half of the folks in our marketplace to not be able to afford to buy your home? A veteran cannot afford, they can't pay for their agent's commission. And if they can't pay for it and you won't, then they can't afford that home because they're going to, just like we saw before, they're going to have a buyer brokerage agreement.
Absolutely.
And so they're going to be responsible for that money. And if the VA loan won't let them do it and the seller won't, they can't afford that home. So
it's not a matter whether or not the agent will sell a property at all.
No.
It's the fact that the buyer is unable to afford your home at your current demand.
This is not us steering buyers away from properties that don't offer a buyer's agent call-up. This is the fact that our buyers can't afford it. And we worry about, because if there are two groups that we feel need agent representation more than anyone, it's my veterans and my first-time buyers.
Absolutely.
They need us badly out there. So right now we are seeing a shift where we've seen more people, dropping out of the boards. Here in Georgia, 2.7% overall board membership is down about 2.7%. We're not legal, okay? We're not attorneys. We're not giving any legal advice. However, for those folks who are realtors right now, especially here in Georgia, we are huge proponents of GAR forms. In addition, part of the reason why there's been, especially like the lawsuits in Georgia, that kind of thing has a really difficult time is because GAR contracts.
Well, their attorney are placing a lawsuit once again, like we said before. It's a race to who's on the first on the line. So what they fail to see is that our GAR form contradicts whatever they're trying to sue us for.
Yeah. Well, in addition, if you are a realtor, you are protected via the lawsuits. So why would you lose that protection all of a sudden and not do that? So just be, that's a personal decision. We're not trying to carry weight for the, water for the boards kind of thing, but we just kind of know that that's going on out there. So
if you guys need some Max One swags, please visit us at max1market.com.
Yep.
And this week we have a training. On Tuesday, we have all in-person sales meeting. For those of you that are interested in knowing us, please come. We invite you. You don't have to be Max One agent. Love to see you, meet you, and what have you.
It's in all of our offices.
Correct.
Live. Yep.
And on Thursday, we have a DISC, Building Relationship in Real Estate. This is a great class because if you can't read your folks, you can't really gauge them the way you should and understand their needs. So I will highly recommend that you come to our DISC class.
Thank you guys so much. We appreciate you. If we can be of any kind of service, please call, text, smoke signals. We answer it all. Have a great week.
Thank you.